Hey, good morning, guys. This is the Recovery Channel podcast. My name is Dr. Rob Kelly, the addiction doctor, along with my co-host next to me, guys. This is real. Look, it's not Jennifer Lovely. Good to see you. We're coming live from San Antonio, both of us today. It's a pretty nice day. It's cold, but it's sunny. I love the kind of weather. I just absolutely love it. So how has your last few days gone, Jen?
Oh my gosh, it's been so much fun. I have been in San Antonio enjoying myself. I got to meet the bullies, the bulldogs, and the deer, and all the fun that happens on the other side of this camera here with Dr. Rob and his beautiful wife, Jay Bear.
And we went down to the Riverwalk, and we did some work. So it's not all been play. We did some work together.
We did a lot of work
future
together.
Things coming. Yeah, we did. So watch out for future things coming, guys. We've got a lot on Recover Me Coaching. Just follow Facebook, go to the website, recovermecoaching.com, and look at the interesting things that we're doing. Starting January the 1st, there's some great packages on there. And we also added a group sessions once every 2 weeks. You can join there. It's really, really cheap. So everybody can get the benefit. Everyone can move forward. And of course, if you want to come on full time, you can do that as well. So it's a great way of a couple of things. One is to find out what we're about with this new business. And secondly, obviously we're going to move your life forward. You're going to be speaking to other people on the group. And then you can decide if you want to improve your life even more by going into private lessons and sessions with me, Jen. And then you get the joint session as well with both of us. I mean, I got to tell you guys, if I was out there still depressed and drinking and homeless and all the crap that I went through, I'd want a piece of this, wouldn't you, Jen?
I would.
It's good stuff, guys.
It is good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Hey, listen, I know what you're thinking at home, guys. Who's on the show today? Well, let me tell you something. I'll tell you who's on the show. Dr. Noel Vest is on the show. Now, listen, I could sit all day and tell you about this guy because we read up on him. Great past story. Great. Well, I'm not going to tell you what he does now, but it's really interesting. And he's got some research as well around prisons and COVID. So this is going to be great, guys. We're looking forward to it. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Dr. Noel Vest right after this. Welcome back, guys, to the show. Recovery Channel podcast here. Dr. Rob Kelly, along with Jennifer Lovely. Our special guest this week is Dr. Noel Vest. Hey, Dr. Noel Vest, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, super excited to have you on. So let's go right into it.
Boom.
That's how we work. I'm really excited to find out. Tell me, what were the 5 most impactful events in your life?
Jeez, that's a big question. I had quite a few impactful events. So I would say probably first and foremost, getting married, that completely and totally changed my life for the better, for sure. Going back, quite a ways, I would say in 3rd grade, I tested to go into what's called the gifted program, and didn't get into the gifted program when I was in school. And that really kind of set in motion kind of an underachieving. I lived up to that expectation, but an underachieving really throughout the rest of my educational time. I would definitely say that I went through a breakup, probably the first real breakup that I had at age 23 that was very, very impactful and really started to kind of change my life. I would say probably for the worst. And then finding AA, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but finding AA in prison and some mutual help groups in prison was very helpful. And then my higher education journey has just been just that decision to go into higher education at a very older age was very, very important as well.
Now, I know you're looking at this guy and thinking, he looks pretty good. He looks pretty educated, but, alcoholism and addiction and all the stuff around it can be deceiving. Noel, if you don't mind, take me back to a month before the prison sentence and then talk to us about that and then going into prison itself. I'm really intrigued.
Sure. So the month before, really the 4 years before prison were very I did not have a I was not a high a high I was not doing very well. Let me kind of put it that way. I was kind of that downward spiral of addiction that you hear quite often. That was definitely where I was at. I was basically couch surfing. I had been couch surfing for probably the last 4 years, and my life was basically trying to sustain methamphetamine addiction through all kinds of illegal means, mainly through identity theft, and that's what I ended up getting caught for. But yeah, that it was, and that was just day after day. That's all it was getting up, figuring out how to make money, mainly through identity theft, and then trying to sustain that relationship with drugs and alcohol.
Mm. So how long were you sustaining your relationship with methamphetamine? How long had you been using before you had jumped and get sentenced to prison?
Geez, I had started probably right around 22 years old. It didn't really get bad until I was 24. So I was kind of sustaining a life. I started a business. I was doing, fairly well up until that time. But I would say, full on, it was about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years using methamphetamine every single day.
Mm.
Wow, that's and just give me. I never actually went to prison. I was locked up so many times, and I got 4 DUIs on the same day. I can't remember. Tell me that feeling when you arrived at the prison.
Yeah, that last one, I knew I was in big trouble. I had been on parole. I'd been in trouble so many times. It sounds very similar to you, where I'd gotten, locked up. It was just kind of continual, and then I would get either released, or I would get these very short terms in jail. And so that last time that I got arrested, I knew that it was going to be for quite a while. And I remember sitting in the back of the police car, looking down at the floor of the police car, and just kind of thinking at that point, what now? That obviously was followed by a pretty severe withdrawal and all those bad things that go along with that post-acute period. But yeah, I was already thinking, like, you really kind of royally screwed your life up. Now what are you going to do? But it wasn't a great feeling. It was, a lot of shame, guilt, a lot of shame, all those things that kind of come along and just kind of, pile up on your shoulders, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how did life get to this point?
Yeah, I can imagine. Having 2 kids that spent a good amount of time in jail, but also in a methamphetamine and heroin world. Talk to me. I read that your mom actually saw they were looking for you. They were looking for a person that maybe had a warrant, and she saw a grainy photo, and I think she realized it was her son. I can't even imagine as a mom, what that would be like. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like for yourself, for you, and maybe your mom? I know she's not here to speak, but.
Sure. Well, let me just first and foremost say my mom that my mom has really been my biggest cheerleader from day one. Probably the only one that was my biggest cheerleader from day one. I had really royally screwed up pretty much every family tie and relationship that I had. And like I say, my mom was always there for me. So my mom is really, one of the heroes of this story. Quite honestly, she was incredible. But the issue, or the story goes, was that I had been out of jail. Went to jail, and then I had gotten out, and I was supposedly turning my life around, and just I think I just wasn't done with my addiction yet, and and so I had kind of fallen back into this identity theft lifestyle without really, with everyone else thinking that I'm doing okay. And then, yeah, the local newspaper had a picture of me walking out of a bank, and yeah, it was a grainy picture, but it was definitely me. And so my mom called in tears, and yeah, that was kind of the beginning of I went on kind of a 6-month run where I didn't contact my parents. I was on the run for the next 6 months until I got arrested that last time.
Wow.
That's crazy. Guys, Dr. Noel Vest is on the show. We're going to go to a short commercial break. We'll be right back with the research around the prison and COVID that Dr. Noel Vest has been doing. Be right back, guys. Hey, welcome back, guys. You've just been watching Living Recovery Interventions. If you're only listening on podcast, Recovery Begins Today. Recovery begins together. Give the gift of recovery, guys. We called him my friend Travis and Jennifer's good friend Travis. From Xanax to a crazy 120-mile-an-hour car crash. If your loved ones need help, please call Travis 801-573-4188 or visit the website livingrecoveryinterventions.com. And remember, guys, recovery begins today. Recovery begins together. So, no, let's go to the research around the prisons and the COVID itself. I mean, how are we doing with that? What have you found out that's interesting that you can tell us?
Well, the issue with COVID in prisons is the outbreaks of COVID. I believe 8 of the 10 worst outbreaks have happened in our prisons, and so I think that a lot of times it's a population that just gets ignored, and because it's so stigmatized and dehumanized, we just think of them. Even when we're thinking about introducing the vaccine for COVID, they're last on the list, or they're very far down on the list. Where like I say, 8 out of the 10 worst outbreaks have been in prisons, and they should be actually at the top of the list. So, kind of taking a little bit of what I know from on the personal side of things, and then the research side of things, taking some of those tools that I'm able to use on the research side of things, and really kind of figure out what's happening, or what's helping to reduce COVID outbreaks has been one thing that I've really kind of focused a little bit of my time working with researchers at the COVID Prison Project, Dr. Lauren Brinkley and some others. We've done some really, really cool work, and I have a publication that will be hopefully published this week. It was accepted last week. We've made sure it's gonna be open access, so it'll be available to everyone. But basically, it's a study that was done actually on the prison system in Texas, because they had such a huge outbreak in Texas. And what we found was that the prisons that were kept their population to capacity ratio under 85% were the most successful in reducing the outbreak of COVID, both the number of deaths at the prison and the level of outbreaks. And so we're really pushing lawmakers and policymakers and prison administrators to take that 85% of capacity number and use it as the absolute minimum that they should be operating at right now, and using their powers to do any kind of releases that they can, whether it's people nearing the end of their sentence, or people that have health risks, especially using every power that they can to try and reduce those prison populations. And so, yeah, it's a new paper that's coming out, and it will be very, very important and hopefully very impactful as we move to the start of kind of the legislative sessions in states and at the federal level.
Yeah, and I have a I don't know, a heart for the prison population. Just, I think just even from having to go and visit my kids in jail, they weren't actually in prison, but having to, do all of that. I have a heart for, that population. And I'm really curious. I watched the movie or the show by Ken Burns, College Behind Bars.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you to have to, and I say have to because I know that what you have to go through to get your education is not easy behind bars. And while there is a huge amount of people that sort of poo-poo that, and you shouldn't be allowed to get an education and you shouldn't be allowed to do this, this, and this, I don't believe that. So can you talk about what it took for you to have the commitment to get your education?
Yeah. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. I could never in a million years, probably portray just how important college and prison programming is. The Barred Prison Initiative and Ken Burns special really kind of shed a light on that. I was in need of a second chance. I will definitely say that most people that I know in prison and friends that I have that I was in prison with, they never even had a first chance. And so it's so important to give individuals a chance at life coming out. And we know that higher education is probably the best tool for someone to, create a livelihood, to create a career. And the transformation, I mean, the transformation, if everyone on this call thinks back to some of the things that happened while you were in school and that transformation that happened to you, in those 4 years of college, that was a lot of growing and a lot of learning that people do. And so that transformation is so important for people in prison. I went to the college and prison program at Columbia Basin, or at College of Southern Nevada, which is in Las Vegas. I was at a prison just outside of Las Vegas, and it changed my life. I cannot tell you how in that moment, those few classes, I think I took 7 credited classes. It was life-changing, and it really instilled study habits that I never even had or knew growing up in high school and in junior high. And so the ability to kind of lay that foundation of having these study habits, and then for me being able to kind of turn that into study habits outside of prison, it just really I can't say enough about how college and prison programming is so incredibly vital. I've also went back and taught in prison, and that experience is just incredible as well. So anyways, I can't agree with you more. The more we can invest in college and prison programming, the less we're going to see people going back to prison, and the more fulfilling, because all of these individuals, nearly all of them, 95% are coming back to our communities. And do we want these individuals to come back to our communities and be successful people, or do we want to have them have no opportunity and go back to prison? I mean, it really, to me, it makes the choice is very, very clear, is that we really want to have these individuals come back to our communities and hopefully have a chance at going on and having some kind of career.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea, because most people, or this is what I hear, obviously they want to be reformed, but I've heard that when you go into prison, it's like, I was better when I came out regarding crime. I learned how to break into cars. I learned to do this, and the percentage of reoffenders that go back is very, very high. So to bring somebody out like you, which is a prime example, to go on to do great stuff and help other people, I think it's definitely worth it. Just going back to COVID for a second in prison, I'm interested to know, was there any treatment available for these prisoners? Or, I mean, what happened there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The study that I did really didn't delve down into, what's happening. I think one thing that your listeners have to realize, that when you think of healthcare, right, you think of being able to like go out and go to the doctor and all these things that we think of as healthcare out here in the kind of on the streets, you would say, in prison, or kind of in the real world. That kind of healthcare doesn't exist in prison. You don't call the shots. You don't go to the doctor. Like, you put in a kite, they get back to you in a week. Or you put in a piece of paper saying that you want to see a doctor. I've waited over 2.5 weeks for an Advil for a toothache that I had that was killing me. So the level of healthcare that we often think of here is nothing compared to the absolute minimum level of healthcare. What we did find in that study, though, was that the geriatric and the prisons that they had that were kind of served as nursing homes were two of the high outbreak prisons as well. And that's the only thing we could really tell about healthcare. I think that the next, probably the next line of research in that line of research would be really to look at, how healthcare, or how offering different kinds of services would impact COVID in prison. But we didn't really look at that. We didn't have the ability to be able to look at that. The other thing with prisons is they hold on to all their data. We were only able to do this because all of the data that we used was made publicly available by the Department of Prisons.
Yeah. So if we can step into your, where you stepped into recovery, both of my kids went into jail with, on some form of either heroin or methamphetamine. They continued using in jail, which, once they figured out that they would have to pay it back, and how were they going to get the money, and the whole underbelly of that world, they subsequently stopped using, and got clean while they were there. But what was your experience? Did you go in high and then continue using and then finally quit, or did you quit before? How did that work for you? Is that where you found AA, I guess?
Yeah, no, it is. Obviously, we all know what happens, right? When a person gets, when a person enters into a successful program of recovery, they basically stay drug and alcohol free long enough for those changes that need to happen in the brain to happen. And that's really the bottom line with anyone that enters into a long-term program of recovery at the biological level, right? So that's definitely what needs to happen. For me, when I got to jail, one of the first things I heard, probably similar to your son, is the easiest way you can get in trouble in jail or in prison. And I knew I was going to be going to prison, right? There was no doubt. Like, they were not going to be letting me out before I was going to go to prison, probably for some time. So everyone kind of told me right at the very beginning, hey, there's two ways you can get in trouble. You can get a drug debt, or you can get a gambling debt. And so that was enough for me to want to stay alive, basically, that I was not going to get a drug debt or a gambling debt. And so that's why I think that advice really kind of saved my life. So yeah, it is something that happens. I saw it happen all around me, but I had enough. It was important enough for me to stay alive that I was able to stay away from those two things.
So is that where you found AA then? You started?
Yeah. Forgot about the second part of your question. I apologize. I did. I went in, kicking and screaming. I was about 3 years into my prison sentence, and a friend of mine said, or I was going to the, can't remember what it was, but someone basically said, if you want to get out, if you want to make your first parole, you got to go to AA. And I was like, I don't want to go to AA. And they're like, well, you don't want to get out very bad. And then that kind of got my, some thoughts flowing. And so, it's kind of a long story, but basically, I peeked outside the room, I looked inside, and finally got enough courage to go in. There was 4 or 5 guys in that AA room, and that experience really changed my life. I'm still friends with a couple of people from that AA group here on the outside that I started way back then. But yeah, it's been a great experience, and it's been a lifelong love affair with AA and self-help as well.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Guys, Dr. Noel Vest is on the show. I hope you're enjoying the show. We're back for the final 5 minutes after this break. Guys, that's recovermecoaching.com. That's myself and Jennifer together, the best coaching you can get. Visit the website, guys, and you'll be amazed, and call the office based in San Antonio. Okay, Noel, so I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. What's life like today?
Life today is pretty incredible. You know, I live in, you know, a pocket of the world that I had never really even heard about. So I live in Palo Alto, California. It's I get paid to research the disease that I suffer from, and I get to be surrounded by researchers that are just incredible in the field, and I get to learn from some of the absolute best and most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. So life is very, very good. I probably didn't even explain this, but I will. So I work today as a researcher here at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, and you know, I've been able to turn my struggle with addiction into a career, into a love affair with science, and trying to learn as much as I can about this addiction.
Yeah. Tell me what you want people to know about the science and the research of addiction. Tell me what you want listeners to, you know about the suffering, the struggle.
Oof, man, I could talk forever about that alone. You know, I've really kind of focused my attention towards kind of hopefully trying to understand, because we know mental health and addiction tend to, you know, co-occur so much. I've really kind of I've had a couple of research tracks, I guess you would say, with that being one of them, trying to understand the overlap between, or that correlation, the association between mental health issues and substance use disorder. So mental illness and substance use disorder. I've done a lot of work in, you know, looking at borderline personality disorder and some other things. But more recently, I've really decided to look at collegiate recovery programs, and trying to understand, trying to make sure that people are even aware of collegiate recovery programs, because they're so vital, right? You know, I think even for people like me coming out of prison, right, you want to have that that bridge, or that pathway, so that you can do your college and prison programming while you're in prison, and then also have that safety net when you come out, that when you go to a college outside of prison, you have that collegiate recovery program to really kind of, you know, offer those support services that are so vital. And so I've been doing a lot of work around there. I'm hoping to just even, you know, make people aware that collegiate recovery programs are out there. You guys have some of the best, one of the best in the nation, is at Texas Tech. I would say probably the best in the nation. And so, yeah, it's you know, that the research in that area is, we don't know anything about it, and it's so important.
Yeah, it is. More research. I studied the brain for 27 years around alcoholism and addiction. And when I first came into the industry, and still today, when I go to some meetings, 12-step meetings, I ask somebody, what's an alcoholic? And the answer is always the same. It's somebody who drinks so much alcohol. And I get freaked out by that. It's like, if it was just about the alcohol, wouldn't we have stopped years ago? Why is the compulsion to go back? Why is the mental obsession? You know, why is the rewiring of the brain needed? Why is trauma always involved in alcoholism? You know, and I was intrigued, because alcoholism took my kids off me, my wife, I lost my house, I lost my medical license, my cars. mean, I lost everything, and I was sleeping in bus shelters for 14 months on the streets. Somebody went to Oxford. What's that all about? And people can't understand it. And that's what intrigued me to do all my research, evidence-based research, and it's just phenomenal. So we know you want to get you out here for your next meeting. So we want to ask you 2 more questions. And this one, I know the answer for me because it was just mind-blowing. But describe the feeling you had when you walked back into a prison to tell your story.
Scared. I mean, honestly, like you hear that door close behind you and it brings back memories that are not good. And for, you know, obviously, so in that sense, you know, very scary, very, you know, some things coming back that are traumatizing. But on the other hand, you know, the warm embrace of the person still suffering, or the person that you know needs to hear your message, you know, and more than anything needs to hear that there's systems in place, right? I think a lot of times we get so enamored with these really feel good stories, and they are great, and I am so impressed and love everyone that shares their story about recovery, but there's systems in place too. You know, that my success is not without, you know, having these systems that were in place that were vital for me to be successful. You know, whether that was ban the box in higher education or whatever it was, you know, there was things that were there that were so important. And so anyways, my experience was very scary, but also just so uplifting. And, you know, being able to put a warm hug around someone and just say, you know, things are going to be okay, and mean it, is just such a great feeling.
It is, and it's so needed. And I've been getting so excited thinking that, you know, we've got this legislation where they're going to legalize marijuana, and we're going to get some of these people that have just spent the last 20 years or longer in jail for marijuana, right? Which is now legal in most states, or recreational legally. And it breaks my heart to think that they've had to, you know, stay in there. But what do you want people to know? Because, you know, the road to recovery is not an easy road. I mean, you know, it's like it's a big squiggly, you know, because it takes a lot to get to that. So how can people on the outside help the people on the inside? What is, you know, we can give them hope, but what kind of hope?
So, I mean, obviously, you know, one thing that's really important to me is taking meetings back into the prisons if possible. I know that's not possible with COVID right now, but taking, you know, mutual help meetings of all kinds, and, you know, and it doesn't have to just be AA. It can be Smart Recovery. It can be, you know, any of these mutual help meetings that can get people on the path back to recovery. I mean, again, you know, I'm very near and dear to college and prison programming, making sure that we restore the Pell Grant for individuals in college. You know, Joe Biden wrote that bill in 1994. I hope that he goes in and is able to fix that, because we need Pell Grants for people in prison. We need to give people hope when they get outside. And to me, you know, my biggest fear was not being able to have a career. I didn't come from a family of wealth. And so, you know, getting out of prison, like, it was a one-shot deal for me. And so, you know, just even giving someone the chance at some kind of career where they can take care of the family and be a contributor to their community, that is, if you don't have that when you're coming out, because there are so many laws in place that you can't go to school, you can't get housing, you can't, I mean, you really have given up before you've even gotten out a lot of times. So, you know, I could ramble on probably for hours and probably for days on what should be done, but that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, as far as, you know, what I feel is really important to make sure that we're, you know, really thinking and caring about people and their future as they're coming out of prison, because like I said, most of them are coming back, and they're coming back to our communities.
Yeah.
Guys, remember, the road in recovery is always under construction. It's a daily maintenance that we keep. You know, if you're suffering from alcoholism, addiction, and get to these 12-step meeting, guys, get onto the program, start reading that book, start getting great sponsors, interview your sponsor. So many people, me included in the early days, just took the first person around 20 years of sobriety did not make you a good sponsor. Just remember that, guys. So look around, interview him, get into a program, get well. This is what it's all about. Living proof today from Dr. Noel Vest of where you can go and who you can be. So I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you for what you do, because no, we never know the effect we have, and we never know, this is part of my research, how good we really are, because when we get to a certain standard and we start affecting people's lives, people go, oh, watch your ego, or hey, don't, he already knows, Noel already knows he's doing good stuff. We don't. So after the research that we've done on you, after talking to you today, I want to thank you for the hundreds of thousands of people that you have already affected, not even knowing about it. And it's called the ripple effect. And I just think you're an amazing guy. You're a real down-to-earth guy. You have an amazing story, inspires me. I love people with that background who can be where we are today, because that's the hope. I don't really want to hear about the surgeon who gets better and he's back a surgeon again. That doesn't really interest me. The homeless guys, the guys in prison that's broke all the rules right now in society to become who you are today. Phenomenal. I want to say thank you for being on the show, Dr. Noel Vest.
Yeah, thank you so much for your you're a hardy human. You know, you have been able to overcome and your resilience and what, just by you surviving what you survived, is you're teaching the world what resilience looks like. And we need more of that, especially during this time of COVID, especially during this time of isolation. You know what isolation is all about. And your resiliency is astounding. Thank you for your work that you've done in the world. Thank you for being the human that you are. And I really just want to acknowledge you for your heart as well, for wanting to give back to the community that you spent so much time in, and it sounds like you still deeply care for. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today. You guys asked some great questions, and I just had a whole lot of fun. So I'll be smiling all day.
All right.
Excellent. Dr. Noel Vest was on the show, guys. Unlock Higher Ed is the website.org. Go and visit the website. Look Noel Vest up. He's absolutely an amazing guy. We'll be right back to say bye. But for now, Noel, great to see you on the show, buddy. Thank you so much.
Take care. Yep.
Hey, welcome back, guys. This is the Recovery Channel podcast. If you've been watching and listening, what a great guest we had. Dr. Noel Vest was on the show, had some great information, great story, just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So during the week on Friday, we'll be back with another fantastic guest. And listen, guys, we're going to start advertising in the morning or the evening before, because I know we just spring this on you sometimes. But if you're watching and listening, Monday and Friday are going to be our days, and about around 9 o'clock Central Time. And it's just going to be awesome, Jen.
Well, and sometimes we might pop in between occasionally. But I really wanted to just talk about how much I loved listening to his story, and I wanted to hear more about his story, because there are humans in prison right now that probably need recovery, and they need support, and they need, I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't in prison that need that as well. But I just felt like that a heart towards that, because the recidivism rate is so high, because our brain stops us and keeps us obsessed, that mental obsession. And we go back in and we go back in and we just keep doing the same thing over again. You know, we need to walk down a different street, but we keep, falling in that same hole. It was just amazing to see him, create what he's created. And I was quite impressed with that.
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome. Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the show. Remember, guys, that if you compliment 3 people today, you'll increase that dopamine in the brain, and we love some dopamine. Guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you not together, unfortunately, because we've not kidnapped Jennifer, and we can't keep her here, so we'll be separate. But this was absolutely great journey. Guys, we'll see you next week.
Bye.